You ready?
Yes,
All right, so if you would please just state your name and your spelling along with your phone number.
sure. Philip Sobeck, PhilipSobeck, 248 563 3563.
Awesome. Philip, give us your thoughts on this amazing day.
This amazing day, let's try it differently.
You're fine.
Yeah. I'm so impressed with how this memorial has turned out today. To see something here local in our city in Michigan to honor all of the wonderful sacrifices that the World War II generation gave is really amazing.
Great. Awesome. What one word describes your emotions at this memorial?
Awe is the emotion that I can most identify with.
All right, and why awe?
It seemed like such an incredible undertaking to have two major war fronts going on at the same time, and they were able to defeat the enemies and bring liberty and peace to the world.
How did you become involved with this effort, Philip?
My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and someone along the way mentioned that they were trying to put this together, and I think we were invited to a fundraiser, so we went to it, and just other opportunities came along to volunteer or to do what we could to move it along, and we just kept doing that.
As you walk through this beautiful memorial, what images come to mind? What types of visions are evoked? And what inspirations would you really like to share with us?
Think about that one more.
So just start it off with,
Yeah.
as I walk through the memorial.
Okay. Well, as I walk through the memorial and I see the statue of the soldier, I'm just amazed at how many people had to endure the sufferings in World War II that just came from home or were drafted, signed up, and had to go far, far away from home and fight. It's just amazing that so many young people especially did that way back when.
Awesome. And then just last question, do you have a brief story to tell us about a friend or a relative of yourself regarding World War II or this memorial park?
Well, my grandpa fought in World War II. He was in the Navy, and his job was to drive the landing boats. And he wasn't involved in Normandy, but he was in other landings in the European theater. And he said when they taught him how to drive it, they were told, you go as fast as you can up to close to the beach, and then throw it in reverse because you had to get all of the soldiers off as fast as possible. And he said he was felt bad because there were certain people who just didn't want to go. They were clinging to the sides of the boat, but his job was to drop them all off and go back and get the next wave. And I was just, it seemed like such an amazing thing for him to do and for all the other people that were in the boat. It's just not something I can personally conceive of having to do.
All right, so first off, if you could just please state your name and spell it and then give us your phone number.
Yep, Debbie Hollis, DebiHollis, 248 568 7764.
All right, now your social security number.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
All right, so first question.
Yes.
Just give us your thoughts on this day.
This day, that's a loaded question. This day to me means more than it's very hard to put into words, actually. We've worked on this for many, many years. We've come to know so many of these veterans. For me personally, I've become friends with so many of them. I've had them to my family holidays. They've been to my home. I've been to their home. So for me, it goes one step beyond honoring our veterans because I feel like I'm honoring my extended family. But honestly, it means the world to me to be a part of this and to finally have these guys get the recognition they deserve. And it's just a testament to our history and what they've done for us and the importance that everybody sees in that.
I agree. That was a very good answer.
Thank you.
Second question, and there's not many, so don't worry.
It's okay.
Give me one word that describes your emotions here at the memorial, and then explain why that one word.
So a word that would describe my emotions today at the memorial is overwhelmed. Whew, it's been a long time, and we've been looking at renderings for years. And we knew on the rendering it looked great and it was going to be amazing. It so far exceeds our expectations, and I think we've all been fairly overwhelmed by what we're seeing, the stories on the bricks, the walk through history, It's all just a little overwhelming.
You give such good answers.
Thank you.
Next question. How did you come to be involved in these efforts?
So I became involved with this program way back in probably 2009 or 10 when it was Honor Flight Michigan. And I saw the advertisements in the local Royal Oak Tribune and thought it was a great program. Wanted to help them, so I did a fundraiser. Thought that's all I would do. Saw the next headline and said, oh, I've got to do more. So I signed up to be a guardian on one of the Honor Flight trips. And that led me ultimately to being on 5 of them. I was ultimately a trip leader on 2 or 3 of them. So I got to know hundreds of veterans. And at that point, there's no way I could just walk away. I knew there was more to do. My dad was in the military, so he was part of the impetus for me getting involved. And then I just knew I had to stay. I had to keep honoring them and finding a permanent way to give them what they deserved.
I like that. So just 2 more questions.
Yeah.
As you walk through this memorial, what kind of images come to mind in, like, sort of inspirations that you see out here as you just stroll through?
So what I'm most inspired by when I walk through the grounds here it's really 2 things. It's the stories on the bricks, because it allows you to actually kind of go back in time and visualize what was happening when that story on the brick was told. And I'm very inspired by what they went through at different battles, or if they were a POW. We all can kind of complain every now and then that we've had a hard day or life's a little rough. And when you read those stories on those bricks, you realize we've got nothing at all to complain about. So I'm very inspired by that. And then the next thing would be the statue of that Army soldier reading a letter from home. For me, communication has always been critical with people we love, whether they're near or far. And that's what that statue speaks to. And so I'm inspired to always stay in touch with people, understanding the importance of that and the importance it was to them.
Thank you. One last question.
Sure.
Do you have a brief story to tell us about yourself, maybe a friend or a relative that pertains to World War II or the Memorial Park?
So if I were to have a personal story, I don't know that it would relate to me or my family per se, but it would probably be about me and some of the veterans I got to know. And some of the honor flight trips that we took, we would hear from their families afterwards. One gentleman in particular, his name was Jack Pike, became a very good friend of mine. And every time we went to an event together, he would cry, he was very emotional, and his daughters would say to me, all our lives we never knew this man. You guys are what brought that out in him. And so we got to see this evolution in these people that we were dealing with and working with and just coming to love and adore. We got to see them open up and blossom in a way that their families hadn't seen for years. So for me, that's really the story that I would share that has meant a lot to me.
Thank you. That's all. You were
Okay.
such a good interview.
Oh, well, thank
We
you.
appreciate you telling us the story.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get choked up too.
Aw.
All right, sir. So if you could please just state your name and how to spell it. You're gonna look right here at Casey.
My name is B.L. Little, L-I-T-T-L-E.
All right. What branch did you serve in, sir?
Quartermaster Service Company.
Awesome. Great to hear. So, give us your thoughts on the day today with the memorial service and getting the park going.
A good day to be honored after all of these years.
That's good. Thank you. What's one word that you could use to describe your emotions seeing this memorial?
Wonderful. It is a good thing for to be honored.
Awesome. It is a good thing for you to be honored. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that, how it's making you feel?
It makes me feel good to be honored. Thank you.
Thank you. How did you first come to be involved in the efforts of getting this memorialized?
Through my
Yeah?
through my Napoleon.
Good. That's good. So just another question. Are you having trouble hearing me, or am I?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Sometimes I turn my head and talk, and it's So, as you walk through this memorial park, what kinds of visions come up, or what kind of feelings are you getting seeing all of this and seeing all the people helping here to make sure that this legacy project gets done?
Well, I just enjoy being here and being honored and for this to happen for the veterans.
Awesome. And one last question. Do you have maybe a brief story to tell us about yourself or a friend or a relative pertaining to World War II or this memorial?
All the amazing countries I went to, I would like to go back again and visit. And I would like to visit them again.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or tell us and about how you're feeling or anything else?
No, I was blessed to go through the war and get home well. Thank you.
That's great. Were you in the Pacific or were you in the
European theater.
Okay. What countries
I went
did
to
you?
England, France, Belgium, Holland, and Germany.
Wow, you were everywhere.
I was in a service company. We supplied the Third Army. We were attached to the Third Army.
That's great. So what was the feeling like coming back home after the war?
Oh, that was good to be back home, to be back with my parents.
That's great. Well, thank you. Go ahead.
I wasn't but one child. I was just one son. I didn't have no sisters and brothers.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story with us, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay. Delphine, give us your thoughts on the day today.
Oh, I think this is wonderful. I was here the first time, 15 years ago? My husband and I were here for that. We were interviewed with Rich Letterman at that day. And I'm so happy that they're finally getting the work done.
So are we.
Yeah.
What's one word to describe your emotions that you're feeling today at the memorial?
I'm about to ready to cry. I really am, because I'm very emotional. Yes, and I keep thinking my husband, the last time we were here, he was with me. Yep.
And I'm sure
this
he's looking down.
Oh, he is. He's just saying, do it, Delphine.
Like that. As you walk through the memorial, or as you walk through on your way up, what kind of images were coming to mind and making you feel the way that you're feeling?
Oh, mostly the flyover, the airplane that did the flyover. And just that they were finally doing something for the men in Royal Oak, and that's about it. I just get very emotional over everything that has anything to do with World War II.
It's great. And we need to hear those kind of emotions
Yes.
in today's day and age.
And
so.
I do, and I'll end up crying somewhere along the line, especially when that plane goes over.
I feel you. So do you have maybe like a brief story about your experience as a Rosie the Riveter and kind of how it shaped things when you were serving?
I've only been a Rosie the Riveter for, what, about a minute alone? I didn't know that I was a Rosie, but let's start from the beginning. Right. I did not know that I was a Rosie the Riveter because a few years back, my son-in-law took me to Baltimore, and we visited the plant that I worked in, and they told me that I wasn't one back then because I worked as a clerk. But in the meantime, I learned that I was, no matter what position you worked in. So I was very happy, very, very happy to be a Rosie.
Well, we appreciate your service, and I know you didn't necessarily serve in the military, but you served at home, and that was really important.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your experience here today?
Oh, I'm just so happy they're getting it done, because it is an honor to the veterans. They risked their lives, and it's just a great honor. It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you. So state your name, please, and your spelling.
My name is Teresa Irish, Teresa Irish.
All right, and what's your phone number in case we need to contact you?
734-502-4577.
Okay. Social security number, bank PIN.
Oh, so that last one was a joke and I fell for it?
No, the phone number is just, it's also for the PR.
Oh, shoot.
Okay. So now the actual question.
Okay.
So give us your thoughts on this event today.
It's exciting, it's humbling, it's long past due for our World War II veterans. My father, we're excited, after he died, we found 1,000 letters in his army trunk that he wrote home from World War II and 250 corresponding photographs. And I was doing speaking engagements based on a book we published called 1,000 Letters Home, and that's how I met members of the board for this amazing and important event here and monument memorial. And we're just honored to be part of it. My dad's letters, they used an excerpt of those, and that is the verbiage that's in front of the mail call station, which we're really honored to have that here for both his legacy and for the state of Michigan. And my family and I are just pleased and honored to be here with you today.
Thank you. What one word would you use to describe your emotions upon seeing this memorial?
Oh, humbling. We all go on with our lives, and then you see what all these soldiers did or these troops did at such young ages, and you, particularly those, like my father served overseas, and his letters from the foxholes and the real-time things that they went through with fear and pride and gallantry, and all while having this love for their families, wanting them to be safe at home so the war never came to their lives, and hence why so many of them were willing to go away and volunteer for the war to go to keep their family safe back home. And so it's really beautiful that they capture that through the larger memorial in time.
I know you already kind of told us a little bit about how you became involved with the memorial. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. When we found my dad's 1,000 letters from World War II and 250 corresponding photographs back in 2006, I went on a journey to put them together along with some family members, and we published it. And that took me to multiple speaking engagements throughout Michigan. And I had the pleasure of meeting primarily Russell and Deb really early on. So over time, as they were developing the memorial and the sites, they had sent me a couple letters about mail call. For instance, how did the soldiers, when they are out in foxholes, get their mail to them at night? And through our correspondence, I happened to send them a quote about mail call, and then I was notified by Russell that the board had elected to use that as the saying at the mail call statue. So we're just honored, and I'm here with, I'm one of 10 kids, and I'm here with many of my siblings and extended members today. Just flew in from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho yesterday to be here on this special day, because it's hugely important to the family members and the following generations, and to just remember why we have what we have in the world today. And it's an evergreen thing. We should just never forget. It will always be part of our history, and we're just completely honored to be part of this day today.
Amen. Just a couple more. As you walked up here today, and you walked over and you saw the bricks, and you saw the statues, what kind of images came to mind? What kind of feelings were evoked?
The thing that comes to mind is we think of this greatest generation now in their older years, but when we think the fact of that when they started this, they were just so young, and young men and young women that were so afraid. My dad came from a little farm community. The fact that so many people worked so hard to be able to be joining the war, and those who couldn't just wanted to serve their country. But it reminds me that we can never forget how young they were and how fearful, and yet the courage that they had to take up arms and to go do this. Many never left their towns, let alone their communities, and all of a sudden they're going to a world away in battle and on the front lines. And it just it evokes a lot of importance. We forget that they were young and starry-eyed and just hoped to make it back, and so many didn't. We were very lucky. Our dad made it back, went on to marry his sweetheart a month after he got home, and had 10 kids, and he always felt a gratitude for the fact that he made it when his buddies didn't. He came back and lived a life very full, and I wish sometimes he could talk to our veterans that are coming back today to tell them, I know there's so much going on in the stress and the residual feelings from war, but you know, he always felt because he had the gift of life when his buddies didn't, you had to come home and live the gratitude you have for doing so. So there's just so many messages yet today and things that still resonate from those words years ago.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. You actually already answered the 6 questions. So
Okay, very
thank
good.
you very much,
All
Teresa.
right,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
Okay, sir, can you tell us your name?
George Rossbach.
Okay. How do you spell the last name?
Rossbach.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, sir. Just a couple of questions regarding how you're feeling here today. So, can you give us what your thoughts are on the event today?
I don't know who we got it all together, but
Oh, you're okay.
That's okay, Dan.
but thank them. This is a lot of guys the same as me. Got that mess over with, and we didn't find the little German, but he found himself and did the right thing.
Thank you. Do you have maybe one word to describe how you're feeling seeing this memorial here today?
Wow, this is the first time I think they've ever put anything on there. And whoever did it, man, I sure thank them. And so do the Hunter and other guys.
So, as you came up today and you saw the statue and you saw the bricks, how did it make you feel, sir?
Well, I didn't see the statue or the the bricks yet, but
That's fine.
I was heading over there.
How do you think it's going to make you feel when you see those things?
I hope the same way it felt about 25, 35, 45 years ago. Real happy.
Real happy. That's great. Oh, today's your birthday too. Happy birthday.
Yeah, today is my 99th, and a couple of my daughters.
They treat you well, your daughters. That's fantastic. Did you serve over on the Pacific front or the European front?
European.
That's great. And what branch were you in, sir?
I was infantry, combat infantry.
That's great. Is there maybe something memorable about coming home from the war or going away to war that you'd be willing to share with us as we try to raise funds for the project?
Really not. But you can get him on the interview.
Your daughter was telling me that when you came back to work, one of your colleagues had been freed from a concentration camp that your unit freed. Is that true?
Yeah.
Do you remember his name, Dad? Do you remember the gentleman's name?
No. I have no idea. I forgot it.
What did it feel like when you were able to free all of those people?
I glad I came to this point like that, and I felt a great feeling for them that we had anything to do with it.
That's great. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for talking for us. And I'm really happy that you're able to be here and experience the memorial. So thank you very much, sir.
It's a wonderful thing you folks have been getting here, and I hope it's going to be the beginning of a memorial type thing that happens every year.
I agree. All right. So could you please state your name and give us the spelling?
Sure, Rabbi Michael Moskowitz. Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Moskowitz, M-O-S-K-O-W-I-T-Z. I'm guessing you want me to look there, right?
You're actually going to look at me.
Oh, even better.
But that's fine, because that's just so when he puts the title on.
Okay, no, I know why. I get it.
It's great, awesome. So, Rabbi, could you please give us your thoughts on the event today?
Sure. First, it's an honor to be a part of this on dedicating this World War II Legacy Memorial. And it's always humbling as a rabbi coming into this, watching the veterans, watching the individuals who are a part of that time of our history and their commitment, dedication, and resolve to want to make this possible today. So I just feel grateful that I get to be a part of it. Watching the last individual you talked to and hearing his story and saying, like, why am I here, right? So I feel blessed I get to be a part of it and to be with, friends and family and celebrate this moment.
Awesome. If you could use one word to describe, and I should have prefaced this and say, if you could, as much as you can, deliver it as a statement when I ask you a question.
Yeah, of course.
Just what's one emotion to describe your feelings?
One emotion that I feel at this moment is pride. Proud of our history as Americans, proud of our community, proud of those who've made the commitment to protect our country and the values and the freedom that are so important to us and what democracy really is. And I will say proud to be included in this auspicious group.
Awesome, and that leads right into the next question, Rabbi. How did you come to be involved in these efforts?
Great. I got involved in the veterans groups in our community through my friend Arthur Fishman. So Arthur is 96 years old, a veteran of World War II, of the Navy, has an incredible story, but he's an active member of my synagogue. And so when Art asks me to do something, I'm there. So probably about 15 years ago, he asked me to be a part of a Memorial Day service at one of the cemeteries. And since then, I've gotten more and more involved with the Jewish war veterans in particular, but in other veteran activities like today's dedication. So a number of months ago, he came to see me and said, I need you for something. And I said, you don't have to ask, I'm there.
I love that. Just a couple more questions. As you walk through the beautiful memorial, you see the statue, you see the bricks, you see everything finally being laid. What kind of images come to mind? What kind of visions are evoked or inspirations that you're feeling are coming up?
When I walk around the memorial here, and today's a active day with people sort of feeling really positive about making this a reality, but when there's moments of silence, when I've been here already and seen it, you feel something different. And it's that silence that I'm sort of filled with inside as well. But then I see people who are active in the military, and I feel very humble in their presence because I'm a civilian. And I hope I represent the values that are part of our country, but here are people who truly defend them, ultimately with their lives at times too. And so knowing that's what this memorial recognizes, so I feel grateful for that and honored to be included in that too.
That's great. And one last question, I know you talked about your 96-year-old friend, part of your synagogue. Did you have a brief story maybe to tell us about yourself, a friend, a relative regarding World War II or the memorial in general?
So for me, a personal connection, my middle name, my full name is Michael Lawrence Moskowitz, and I'm named for an Uncle Lou, is the Lawrence part of that. One of the two people I was named for, and he was killed at Battle of the Bulge. So I know he's a role model for my dad, And so obviously no one I ever knew but knew stories. And I think for my dad and his generation, my father's 88 years old, and so he grew up with this always a part of him and always talked about that. I actually called him on the way here today to tell him what I was doing, and knowing that he'd be proud that I was a part of this. And he sort of chuckled and said, okay, I feel like I've taught you something. So that's one thing. And then for me also as a Jewish man, I always feel that connection, and when I hear soldiers who talk about who've liberated the camps, and knowing that all of us know individuals who are lost, whose families are connected to that, and those who are liberated from the death camps in Nazi Germany and throughout Europe. Those are some of the most remarkable stories. And so knowing that we're indebted to the U.S. finally getting involved and making a difference there and saving lives too. So I think for us, the Jewish community, that's always something we want to recognize and be connected to.
Thank you, Rabbi. I appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you for
Glad I could help.
All right. So if you could just please state your name and the spelling.
Mark Heckler,
Okay. How do you spell it?
Hechler.
Thank you, Mr. Eckler. So what are your thoughts on today's ceremony and the memorial?
Absolutely fantastic. I didn't realize that there's so many people were going to turn out. Amazing. I hope that I saw the article in the paper that they still need money for the memorial. I hope they get more than they need. I went to the dedication of the memorial park, the dinner that they had at the hotel. It was very nice. I didn't realize they showed a presentation of what the park was going to be. And this was at least 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm glad that they're getting started on this here. I figured it might be finished by now.
It's wonderful to see, and that's why we're all here, is to make sure that it does get across the finish line.
Well, I hope it does.
What kind of emotions are you feeling seeing this kind of support for something to memorialize your service?
Very, very excited. Something that I guess a memorial for the World War II veterans that served during the war from Michigan.
And what does it mean to you as a veteran?
At least we have something to say, here, this is what we did, this is our memorial, and I hope they remember it.
Awesome. What branch and division did you serve?
I was in the Army as a PFC.
Awesome. And did you serve Europe or?
Europe. I went in to service in October of '44. Took my basic training at Camp Landing, Florida. Have you heard of it?
Yes, sir.
How do you know about it?
I used to read a lot of the Time Warner World War II books, and it talked about a lot of the armory divisions being trained out of that.
Well, when I was there, they trained us as heavy weapons, heavy 30 caliber machine gun and mortar. I didn't see any tanks. As a matter of fact, after the war, we took a trip down to Florida and we passed through Camp Landing, and I asked the MPs if they knew about Camp Landing. They said they'd never heard of it. They never heard. And yet later on, I saw in a magazine where Camp Landing was used for war stories or war pictures. But then from Camp Landing, I went to Camp Shanks. From Shanks, I was shipped overseas. I was shipped overseas to Germany in March of '45. Was in the 12th Armored Division as a replacement in the 17th Armored Infantry Battalion. Couldn't tell you Where I was, couldn't tell you the cities, nothing. There were no signposts. Nobody told us where our location was. But I do remember one towards the end of the war where we were on the Autobahn going south. Going south. We were probably far ahead of any support columns that if we were attacked, we probably would have been annihilated. When the war ended, I was in the Bavarian Alps near the Swiss border, near Innsbruck. After that, from there, I know we stopped in some other places in Germany before we were put on a troop train to go back to the States to fight in Pacific. But when we were on the troop train, the war ended with Japan, wound up in Namur, Belgium, in a repo depot, stayed there for probably 2 weeks, and then was redeployed back to Germany as an MP for the Army of Occupation. And what was I guarding? Troop supplies for the U.S. Army, or for the government, I should say.
All right, why don't you give us your name and how to spell it, and then your title.
So I'm David Coulter, Coulter. I am the Oakland County Executive.
All right, thanks. Is Al Brooks Patterson still around?
He passed away, and I followed him.
Awesome. I lived in Oakland County when Al Brooks was around.
Yeah,
Did
yep.
a lot of great stuff.
I'm the new Al Brooks.
So, Mr. Coulter, could you give us your thoughts on this amazing day?
I love that we've taken some time today here in Royal Oak, but really this is about all of Michigan, to remember those who fought in World War II. We're losing a lot of them. It was a while ago, and our memories can be short, and their stories are leaving us. So what we're doing today is we're preserving their memories and also their stories, and making sure that for future generations, we remember what they did, what they fought for, and what they meant to this country.
What would be one word you would use to describe the emotions you feel at this memorial? Please explain to us that.
I guess grateful. They were, the members of that generation, now called the greatest generation, they were so strong and so modest. And they didn't share their stories nearly as well as we probably needed them to, because they were modest. But I'm so grateful for what they did, and that we can gather like this and remember their stories.
Right. How did you become involved with these efforts?
Oh my gosh, so my neighbor is one of the architects.
Wow.
I still live in Ferndale. Michael is one of the architects, and he's my neighbor, so he told me about what they were up to. Of course, I was encouraging of it, I was supportive of it, but once I became the county executive, I realized that I also had a responsibility to use my platform to get the word out, to help them grow this and hopefully complete this someday, and I feel a responsibility to do that.
Amen. Appreciate that. Just two really quick ones to end this out.
Yeah.
As you walked through here today and you saw all of the people out here, you know, in memory and in support, you saw all the World War II veterans and the Rosies and the kids and the grandkids. What kind of visions and sights and emotions did you feel?
You know, when I approached the memorial, I saw a woman standing over a brick, and I assumed it was, you know, someone she knew, and I went over there to ask her, and she said that it was her father. And then she started telling me his story, and I teared up a little, because you could see that this was important to her, and her story was important to her, and she was eager to share with me who he was and where he served and why he served. And you know, I wasn't born during World War II, but to have that brick made a connection between me and her. I would have never had an opportunity or a reason to ask her about her dad or his service in World War II. But because of that brick and because of her being there and because of me being here, we were able to have a connection that I'll remember for a long time. And
Such a great answer.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else
I think
that
that-
you want to share?
I don't think. Yeah.
Handed that on.
Sure. My name is Mark Saloom. It's MarkSalloum.
Okay, Mark, and
Right.
what's the name of the film that you're creating?
We're producing a film titled The Greatest Generation, Let Us Not Forget.
Awesome. So, actually the first question was worded really well. What are your thoughts on today and the events surrounding this and what's being done?
Well, as I experience what's going on today, it's really a thrill to me because growing up most of my life, I can't say that I had any soldiers in our family, but I was always enamored by the stories that I would hear. And I've always had this attraction towards older folks who would share their stories. So when I ran across people who would share stories about their World War II experiences, it really got to my heart. So as we go through a day like today, it's really just very humbling and beautiful to see the honor that they're trying to pay to the heroes that really gave all that they could for our country.
As somebody who interviews a lot of World War II veterans and a lot of people in the greatest generation, what do you think something like this says to them and to what they brought to our country to shape it into what it is today?
Sure. One second. I wasn't sure how today was going to unfold, but as I heard the comments from a lot of the representatives up there, how important it is to be able to share the stories and the memories of the soldiers, and not just the men who were out there fighting, but also the women who were working as Rosies. My grandmother, in fact, was a Rosie back in that time. So it was really wonderful to be able to hear and correlate what we're doing to make this film come to fruition, and to hear what was being professed today, to make sure that there's sort of that tie-in between the memorial and really kind of doing the same thing with our film.
Awesome. What's one word to describe your emotion over the memorial and what it means?
Humility is probably the most appropriate word for me. I'm very humbled by many things in my life, but to know that we have all these men and women who served us, and to understand that, it really means a lot, and it should mean a lot to every American out there.
I agree. How did you become involved with these efforts for the memorial here in Michigan?
I can't say I'm directly involved with the memorial, but I reached out to them when I heard about this and I was here at the groundbreaking. So when I came, I talked to a couple of the people there, and we've stayed in communication. So they've been wonderful in basically connecting me with some of the veterans. We've interviewed 21 people at this stage, and many of them are Michigan-based. So they've been instrumental. The World War II Legacy Memorial has been instrumental in helping make those connections for us and really making our film come to fruition.
Awesome. And then just one final question.
Yeah.
If you were to be able to tell anybody in, let's say, the millennial generation or the Gen Z generation, why something like this is important, what would you say to them?
Sure. Honoring our past history is critical to knowing what democracy represents, what America represents. So I really implore you to go onto Google, go wherever it is that you need to, watch movies, and learn and understand what it is that these men and women did to really provide us with the country that we have. Without them, America would not be what it is today. There's no question about it. And the last thing I want to see happen is for America to turn on its back and turn away from the democracy that we've built over the last century and a half. So I truly implore the younger generation to do everything you can to understand and give thanks and praise not only to our soldiers, but to God for what we have as a country.
Amen. Thank you, Mark.
Good.
Yep, so won't take long, won't be too in-depth.
All right.
Just want to hear from you
Sure.
a little bit about your story and how this all made you feel today and why you think it's important.
Right,
So
right.
if you could first just state your name and then give us how to spell it.
Right. Francis Masters. Can I put O'Brien in? My husband was my second husband. John, let's see, Francis O'Brien Masters.
Okay. Perfect. I think we can figure out how to spell that. That's awesome. Just briefly, give us your thoughts on today and seeing everybody out here to support the memorial and so many veterans and so many Rosies.
I was amazed. I was honored to be one of them. It just gave me the chills just to be here with the rest of the veterans and the Rosies that helped, with the war. I was really honored and appreciative.
Good. Well, we appreciate you. So if you can think of, if it's even possible to put this into one word, what's one word you would use to describe your emotions as you watch this all unfold?
Breathtaking. Breathtaking. All these people, so many people that honored this award.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So as you got to see this memorial develop over the years,
Right.
and you got to see all the bricks that are out here and the statues and seeing the sculpture of the Rosie the Riveter, like how did that make you feel?
I feel honored in a way. One, honored that I am part of it, that I contribute to the war. Yeah, I was really honored is the word I would put it.
That's great to hear. If there's one thing you could tell Micah and I's generation about why something like this is so important, what do you think that would be?
Well, it's important. Like my motto for young people is hard work. This takes hard work and common sense. That's my motto. And you can do anything. That's how I went by my life. Is it right? Is it? I talk to myself. Maybe I should do this. And that's my motto. And it went a long ways. I had 6 siblings. I'm the only one alive out of 6 children. But hard work. A couple of my sisters didn't want to. They didn't want that kind of work. But I said, I gotta do it. Yeah.
Good. Just one more question.
Sure.
Is there a story you have, possibly from the 40s or 50s, something around there, or here at the memorial, someone in your family, yourself, has felt that you might be willing to give us a little bit of insight in?
Well, honey. Well, my oldest brother, he served at. He was like a father to me. He went in the service. They called him right away as soon as the war started. And he served in Puerto Rico, and then he was transferred to later on in the Battle of the Bulge, but never made it home. But he was like a father to us, and I really do miss him. Yeah, yes.
So does this memorial mean a lot to you because of people like him?
Yes, yes. I'm doing this personally for my husband and my 2 brothers. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm meeting a lot of beautiful people.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
It's so nice to be able to everybody to meet like this.
Thank you, sir.
What a treat to have you here too, Francis.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll unclip you here.
Alrighty.
No worries about that. So I'm just gonna.
Okay, deal.
I'm just gonna ask you a couple questions about today. Obviously your relation to it, how it made you feel, how do you think it's gonna make the people in the state of Michigan feel. So first off, just if you would, Secretary, give us your thoughts on today's events, today's festivities.
It's extraordinary to see a beautiful day with hundreds coming together to celebrate this memorial, the World War II memorial in Michigan, and really emphasizes how, while this is here in Oakland County, it really is a memorial for the entire state of Michigan and all of the veterans who served, particularly those who served in World War II, and an opportunity for them to share their stories, tell their stories, honor their stories, and their family sacrifices over the years. So a beautiful day to celebrate all that goes into making our democracy work for everyone and all the sacrifices that have been made along the way.
So what emotion do you think would best describe for you personally seeing all of the World War II veterans, the Rosies out here, the families, the kids, the grandkids, absolutely anybody who could have been touched by this memorial, what emotion comes to you?
You know, I'm filled with enormous gratitude and inspiration of those who are here today to tell their stories, to be celebrated and to celebrate each other, to see the Rosies coming together and singing and doing the pose, and all of that was really moving and inspiring, but overwhelmingly filled with gratitude that we have this space for this celebration, for this honoring of those who've given so much, and to hear their stories of what they shared and sacrificed so that we can be inspired to do the same when our time is called.
So as a public servant and as the spouse of somebody who serves in the military, what do you think something like this means to today's generation?
I think something like this, a memorial here in Oakland County alongside Woodward, one of the busiest thoroughfares in our state, reminds us every day of the sacrifices that military families are making every day in our state and around our country. And it shows us, it shows me as a mom, as a military spouse, how we can still tell that story in a way that will remind us that it is omnipresent, the sacrifice and the service that so many have made, and will teach our kids, my son, the story of both his father's work and service, but there's those of so many others who serve to ensure that we truly could have and live in a country that is free for all.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question, Secretary Benson. Do you have a brief story that you could tell us about maybe yourself, friends, family, pertaining to World War II that maybe influenced your future?
My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and I was constantly growing up hearing his stories about serving in the Pacific and being in the Navy and what that meant to him, and how he and my grandmother met during that time as well. And so it really, those stories form the fabric of our nation. They're the stories of so many millions of families all around the country who served and sacrificed at a pivotal time in our global history, where we all came together to stand up against those who were being both treated horribly and moved out of their countries in furtherance of an ideology that doesn't reflect who we are as a world. And so knowing that so many men and women stood up in that time when the world called them to service, to serve on behalf of our country and the ideals that make us who we are, is really inspiring. And it was something that I was shared with in stories growing up, and that memorials like this one will carry forward for future generations.
Amen. Well said. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for your time,
Thank
Secretary
you.
Benson.
Thank you.
All right, we'll start with an easy one.
Yeah.
Tell us your name. Go ahead and spell it so we know.
Yep.
And then what your title is.
Alan Muskovitz, first name A-L-A-N, last name M as in Mary, U-S-K-O-V as in Victory, I-T-Z.
Perfect.
And I'm a former board member, but still a volunteer.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Good. So former board member, now a volunteer. What keeps you coming?
What keeps me coming is I had to see it through, no matter what capacity I was in. I originally got involved because of Honor Flight, where you take the World War II veterans to Washington, D.C. on a flight, one-day trip. And when it became obvious that they couldn't take veterans much anymore because of their age, this was proposed, this great, beautiful project. And then to see it over these years, how much hard work, I couldn't walk away from it. And so I've been happy to participate in any number of fashions just to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. So just briefly, give us your thoughts on this day.
The day in general, or the memorial, or the site, or
this day commemorating the phase one.
Getting phase one done was so. Let me do it again. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Go ahead.
The importance of phase one cannot be understated.
You're fine. Take your time. This is the beauty of movie magic.
I understand. Yeah. Getting to phase one is going to be the catalyst for seeing this to completion. And it took a long time to get there, with a lot of work and a lot of dedication. But now that people can see something and say, look at this, let's add to this, we can finally show the fruits of our labor. And this great board that worked on it, and the people that donated, and just the average citizen who participated and bought bricks.
And when I look at that phase one now, and I see those brick pavers and those flag posts, when I came here the first time, it far exceeds anything I was staring at in that rendering for the last 10 years. I can't believe how dynamic it looks.
That's great. So as we look through periods of time, obviously phase one is completed in 2023.
Right.
What do you think having this memorial here is going to mean for future generations?
Well, that's so critical, and it is important. You know, the greatest generation is not far off from being completely history. I don't look forward to the day when I can't communicate with somebody from the greatest generation, and it's coming. And this has to be here. These stories have to continue. We cannot let their stories, their history, their dedication fade. And considering the state of things right now, it is more important than ever that they realize what sacrifice is and what it is to be Americans together to get something accomplished.
Amen. So just give me one emotion that you felt being here today and seeing the veterans and seeing the Rosies and seeing the children and grandchildren of the people in the greatest generation that turned this country into what it is today. What emotion? One emotion did that bring out?
One emotion is finally having a chance to show how grateful we are in I'll do it again. My apologies.
Gratitude's actually one of our company core values. So
okay.
it's really
All right,
nice.
so you asked me what is one emotion that comes to mind. Let me think for 1 second. The emotion that I feel is that I know through this and the phases to come that their legacy is secure. Their legacy is here to stay and to be taught and to be learned from years to come. So it's a legacy that could easily be forgotten if we don't work at it. And this is part of the work we have to do to make sure that stays intact.
Amen. Okay, last one.
Yeah.
Is there a brief story you can share from yourself or from a family member that maybe served in World War II, or friends, or something that you heard that pertains to being able to memorialize this?
Well, I'll tell you what, I can tell you something and see if this works for you. I kid people. I served as a 6th grade crossing guard at Glen Shanos Elementary School in Southfield. I served honorably. I wasn't in the service. I'm now a patron of the Jewish war veterans. Since I'm a little boy, I have had an emotional tie to the servicemen and women that serve our country. It always just meant something to me. And so I've always had a soft spot and an emotional spot for them. So I've always been tied to it. And so I can't relate stories in my family. We don't really have a tremendous military background in my family, but this is my association with it. This is my way of giving back, if you will, to the people that gave us so much.
That's so perfect. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Anything else you'd like to add, or are you happy with it?
Uh,
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give a salute. This may not fit for your purposes or whatever.
Perfect. We love it.
I do a lot of editing, so I appreciate the fact that the more you add, the more you got to edit.
Yes, sir.
So I won't beat you up too bad. But I just want to say, as a former board member and a continuing volunteer, that today was a grand slam. Today was something that was surreal. And to get this crowd and to get the dignitaries that came out and the support, I just want to applaud the board members of the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial, the support from the city of Royal Oak, and just say bravo, because here it is. It happened. It's a reality. And that's something we've been waiting a long time for, and now we got to get to the finish line.
Amen. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, I think this
Nice
was
to talk
mine.
to you, Alan. Perfect. All right. First question, just state your name and your title.
Ryan Friedrichs, board member.
Board member. And currently serving or veteran?
Veteran, active duty, combat veteran.
Awesome. Very cool. What branch?
Army. I was paratrooper, 173rd Airborne, infantry, and sergeant.
Really, paratrooper.
Yes, sir.
Oof.
Okay.
So just really quick, give us your thoughts on today.
Today was inspiring. As a veteran, to meet actual World War II veterans is an unbelievable honor. My grandfather was a veteran. He was World War II in the Pacific Theater. We're going to have a brick for him. My son came. He's 7. He got to pick the spot he wants to put it in. So I think for him to be a part of this was a really special day. So a long time to see volunteers do this, no one getting paid, just doing this out of the kindness of their own hearts meant a lot.
What do you think something like this means to future generations? I know you mentioned you have a 7-year-old son.
Yep.
And he likely won't grow up with many people from the greatest generation. So what does having a memorial like this mean to future generations?
His great-grandmother, my grandmother, just passed away, 99 years old, and she would tell him stories of his grandfather. And now, as I just took him to the memorial, he sees the soldier sitting down, he's asking about his great-grandfather, my grandfather, and it's a way to have that conversation, for him to see it, think about the sacrifice, people who didn't come home, right? I wear a memorial bracelet for a buddy of mine who didn't come home, and it's a way to have that conversation with him about my life too.
Awesome. So emotions are obviously high today.
Yeah.
Anything from relief, overwhelmed, gratefulness. What's the biggest emotion that you think you felt today, and why?
I felt like I was home. You know, the only thing you do alone in the military is leave, right? Everything else you do with a buddy, with a partner, with a team. And so to be back with veterans of all stripes, felt like I was home.
That's great. Let's see. Do you have just a brief story to tell us about yourself, a friend, or a relative regarding World War II, or this memorial specifically?
I mean, the story I'd tell is a friend of mine I lost in 9/11. So a friend of mine named Todd WWII, a wonderful kid. He was so scared to go to school, had panic attacks going to school, eventually becomes a camp counselor for kids who have panic attacks. Best guy in the world, University of Michigan. I met him, went to every football game with him, and he was in the North Tower, Cantor Fitzgerald. 9/11 puts a call through to his mother, gets through to her on 9/11 after the plane is hit, lets her know his dad's going to be okay. His dad survives. Here's a kid too scared to go to school, right? When he's younger, making a call on 9/11, putting his mom at ease, right? I served because of him. I served in his memory, and third week in Afghanistan, we lost a good friend of mine. We do a memorial run for him, Shane Cantu, every year, and a place that is every year I can go to with my son, my family, to remind us of Shane's sacrifice, of all the sacrifices of people like that who didn't come home that I live with, right? And I was the lucky one to get to come to days of blue sky and ice cream and kids, right? They didn't get any of that. Didn't get to be married. Shane didn't get to be a dad. I did. And so this helps me know that I'm living for Shane. I'm putting this up in his memory and the memory for him, for Todd, as well as for my grandfather. So that's what the day means for me, and thanks for letting me tell their stories.
Thank you. I knew Shane.
Yes, sir.
All right, first of all, state your name, how to spell it.
Hi, I'm John Maten, M-A-T-E-N.
All right, and John, what is your title here? What do you do?
I'm president of the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to ask you questions. You're talking to me, but think of it as I'm not here, so people aren't going to hear the questions. They're just going to hear your statements.
Okay.
So it helps to kind of say it as a statement when I ask you a question.
Okay.
All right, so first question, what are your thoughts on today?
It's been amazing, better than we could have ever expected. Just as we were building a memorial, every time we added a piece, we said it just can't get any better, and it continued to get better and better. And the way that the memorials turned out and the way the crowd and the ceremony turned out today was exactly what we wanted, so it was perfect.
Perfect, awesome. Just keep talking to me.
Okay.
You're fine, I didn't tell you that. So
Yeah, okay.
So what do you think is the one emotion that best describes today for you?
Well, as I said in my talk, I thought the one word I thought about was connection, that it connects so many different ways, that different generations, it connects to different parts of the state, it connects to different people from different backgrounds in the home front and the war front. So that's what it meant to me, is really that connection between everybody and bringing it all together, and it's something we need more of in this country now.
Agree. So how did you get involved in this project?
So my wife and I got involved in 2014. They had the Embracing Peace statue here, which was the sailor kissing the nurse in Times Square. And it was laying in the parking lot at 13 and Woodward getting ready to be put up. And we said, well, let's stop and see what this is all about. And so that was one of the things that was done here, was having that here for 6 months to try and raise funds for the memorial. So that's when we started getting involved. They said, would you like to be on the board? And the rest is history.
So as you walk through this memorial, after phase one and got to see the fruits of the labor, and today you got to see World War II veterans and Rosies and families look at this, what kind of imagery came to your head? What kind of motivations or inspirations that brought?
Well, one of the things that we did about a month ago was we laid all these paver bricks out. And as we laid the paver bricks, you're reading the stories that are on them and just saying, you know, like I mentioned, you know, you learn more about World War II and that generation by reading these bricks and the individual stories than you ever could possibly learn in school. So just that feeling of gratitude, but also realizing how humble these people were, that not only did they contribute during the war, but then they came home and did great things as well.
Perfect. You mentioned you worked for General Motors, and you know, being the arsenal of democracy here, how important that is. You've gotten to know so many World War II veterans over the years. Is there a short story you could share with us about yourself or a friend or a family member pertaining to World War II or the memorial?
Yeah, we talked to a couple of different Tuskegee Airmen, and you know, what we found out with them is obviously they were heroes during the war, and they came home and weren't allowed to have commercial airline jobs, right? They couldn't fly. So many of them went to school and got degrees and became leaders in their own way, either as teachers or executives, or they contributed to society, even though society really wasn't giving them a fair shake at that time. But they came back and just did what they thought. You hear all the social justice things today that are going on, but to listen to how humble they were and how they wanted to contribute to society in every way that they could, regardless of what was they were up against.
Good. And then just one more thing, if you could talk to future generations about why something like this is so important, what would you say to them?
I think remembering our past is always important. We look at World War II, the reasons it was fought, you know, what we were protecting and fighting for, and remembering that the way that our lives are today is in no small part because of what happened back then. I saw an article the other day where somebody was about the 75th anniversary of D-Day and why is it relevant today. And one of the current soldiers on active duty says, my world would not be like it is today without what these men and women did during World War II. So that's what it means to me.
Okay, so just state your name and spell it for us.
Okay, my name's Judy Maten, Judymaten.
All right, Judy, and what do you do here for the World War II Legacy?
I'm on the board for the World War II Legacy Memorial.
Very cool. How did you end up on the board? What brought you in?
Actually, it was the Embracing Peace statue that was brought here to stand on the corner of 13 and Woodward in order to bring attention to the memorial project. And I was out riding around in the car with my dad, who was a Korean vet, and we heard World War II stories of his uncles who served. And he saw that statue, and that was it. And we had to stop. And we stopped every time we drove by. We had to stop at the statue. So,
I love
yeah.
that. What are your thoughts on today? Everybody coming in, seeing so many people here to support it, World War II veterans, Rosies, you know, public dignitaries and servants. What did today mean?
It was overwhelming because we've been working on this and so focused on it, but it's overwhelming to see the vets that we're honoring. And for me, I was a chemical engineer and I worked at GM. So the Rosies, they broke down barriers for me so that I could do what I did. And I was always very appreciative to them, and I've talked to several of them. And their story was my story in a lot of ways, so I was really appreciative of that. But then to see the family support and the community support that's here and people being excited about it. It seems like getting the word out's been the hardest part about this, but now I think this is a spark to really ignite the rest of the project.
I know, I feel that so much. Emotionally, what's one primary emotion that you felt today seeing all of this?
My dad was a Marine. And he was in Korea, but he was very proud of his service, and he taught my sister and I that we had to give back and we had to serve our country. And he loved our country and was very proud of being that Marine. And we heard the stories of his uncles who served in World War II, one of whom never came back. He was in the Battle of the Bulge and was killed in action. And so we heard about Uncle Freddie and Uncle Tom and Uncle Bob that served in World War II. And it's kind of that idea that we're proud to be an American, and it means something to live here and to pay it back. And so a lot of it was my dad and just the idea that we had to do this. And then I have grandkids that I want to realize they helped lay some of the bricks over in the Walk of Honor. And my 8th grade grandson had just studied World War II. And so he was reading the bricks, and I said, every one of those bricks represents somebody that you studied. And I recognize the battles. And so I guess that's our hope too, is that the fortitude and the sacrifice and the willingness to do what was right that they exemplified in World War II is carried forward, and that we can continue to carry it forward into the future generations.
That's great. How can people, in your words, how can people ensure that more of these phases get done and we continue this on?
We need the financial help. We need the word to get out. A lot of companies that are still in existence today were critical to the arsenal of democracy. General Motors, Ford, Jeep, American Motors, all the different phases they've gone through. Chrysler, who is now Stellantis. Even Kellogg, they came up with the K ration and the amount of calorie intake a soldier needs. So a lot of companies in this state owe their successes to World War II and the industry that was created out of that. And so we're hoping that some of the industry also joins us. The individual donations are important, but we need the industry to help too.
Sure. Is there anything else you would like to add?
It was just, we have been working so hard at this and getting, to today we've been laying sod and putting down bricks and getting everything ready, but to see everybody today, it was real. It's real. And now those flags went up, and I thought of my dad. I thought of when the Army flag went up. We have a son in the Army, and my daughter was here. She's a veteran, and it was like, we're taking our part. So.
What did it feel like to have that B-17 fly over?
That was pretty cool.
It was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Well, and we visited Normandy. And so to walk along those beaches today and know, you can tell what way the bomb flew by the way the divot is in the ground. I can't imagine the horror of that. And so those planes, what a relief those planes were, when people in the camps heard those planes coming in, and people in captive villages heard those planes. That was a sign of hope. So it's proud. It's a proud day today.
Well, thank you for inviting us. It was very enriching to see all this, to be a part of it. We can't wait to cut this up and help you guys get the funding that you need.
Yeah,
Best we can.
I'm hoping today was, and that there's somebody out there, many people that we can do this.
I saw a lot of faces paying attention with
Good.
great intent.
Good.
So.